Welcome to the deep dive. Our mission, as always, is to really get into the core knowledge, the surprising insights from a stack of source material. We want you to be thoroughly well informed, but, without that feeling of information overload.
And today, we're tackling something. Well, something often pushed aside into the self-help category.
Yeah.
But actually, according to some really cutting-edge research in neuroscience, in psychology, it's maybe the most fundamental force shaping your entire life.
Yeah, it's like this invisible architecture of your reality.
Exactly.
It's that single command that seems to override pretty much everything else. Luck, talent, circumstances. The most startling truth, when you boil down all our sources for today, it comes down to just 7 words. Simple, but incredibly profound. You become what you believe you are.
And this deep dive, it's really dedicated to showing that phrase isn't just, well, motivational fluff. We're aiming to move beyond just inspiration. We want to give you a clear, scientifically grounded, and genuinely actionable roadmap. We're going to examine belief as this unseen filter, almost like the operating system running in the background, through which you interpret every single piece of data the world throws at you.
Our sources jump right into this, highlighting the core issue with this invisible filter. Think about that initial contrast they often bring up. 2 people, maybe they grow up in really similar circumstances, same schools, same background, same basic opportunities. Yet one person, they manage to pivot their career, they bounce back from failure, build a really expansive life. The other just feels stuck, perpetually stalled.
And we tend to look outside, don't we? We think, oh, it must be connections or market timing or just bad luck.
Yeah, exactly.
But the sources argue overwhelmingly that the difference is almost always internal. It's that invisible filter of belief. That's what determines if you see a challenge as this crippling threat or maybe just a fascinating problem that needs solving.
And that filter dictates the mindset, which then drives actual tangible action, things you can measure.
Precisely.
Yeah.
So to really unpack the mechanics of how that shift happens, how you can actually change that filter, we've structured this deep dive around 5 core themes. These really weave through all the material we looked at.
Okay, what are they?
First up, awareness. Because honestly, you can't upgrade a system you don't even know is running.
Makes sense. Step 1 is seeing it.
Second, responsibility. The moment you become aware of the script that's been playing out, you gain this undeniable freedom and maybe the burden to actually rewrite it.
Okay, awareness, then responsibility. What's third?
Third, we anchor all of this in the science. That's neuroplasticity. This is basically the biological guarantee from your brain saying, yes, I am inherently malleable. Change is possible.
The hardware can be updated.
Exactly. Fourth is daily practice. Understanding that real, lasting transformation isn't built on these huge bursts of willpower that just fizzle out. It's about small, consistent habits.
Small steps adding up.
Yes. And finally, number 5 is resilience. Because let's be real, when you start changing deep-seated beliefs, you're going to hit bumps. Resilience is the framework for weathering those storms, for dealing with the challenges that will test every new belief system you try to install.
Awareness, responsibility, neuroplasticity, daily practice, and resilience. Okay, that gives us a solid map for this. Let's dive into part 1. Let's start right at the beginning then. What is a belief? Not just vaguely, but in a tangible sense. Our sources define it as way more than just a fleeting thought.
Oh, absolutely. It's not just a thought passing through. Think of it as a mental blueprint, a psychological label maybe, that gets attached to what neuroscientists call these well-traveled neural pathways.
Okay, explain the neural pathways a bit more.
Imagine your brain like a massive highway system. A belief, let's say it's, I'm not good at public speaking. That's like a really busy multi-lane highway. Traffic thoughts, feelings, reactions related to public speaking flows down that highway super fast, automatically, with almost zero conscious effort or energy cost.
So it's a physical route in the brain, an established pathway that becomes the default, the neural autopilot, as they call it.
That's a great way to put it, neural autopilot. And how we build and reinforce that blueprint, that highway. There's a lovely little anecdote in the sources about the grandmother.
Oh, the one with the barren soil.
Yes. This woman, she lived through terrible droughts year after year. But every single year, she'd be out there diligently tending this patch of earth that looked completely barren, just dust, really.
And the neighbors thought she was a bit crazy.
They did. They'd tease her, why are you fussing over dirt? But she just smiled and said, because I can already see the flowers.
That hits hard. The belief comes before the evidence. It actually creates the possibility.
Precisely. Belief precedes manifestation. It constructs the framework, the expectation, the hope, the possibility, long before anyone else sees a single sprout. If you genuinely don't believe the garden is possible deep down, you never even bother picking up the spade.
Wow. Okay. And this formation, this belief building, it isn't random, is it? There's a loop involved.
Not random at all. It follows a really predictable reinforcing cycle. The formation loop, it starts with an event. Something happens, or you get some information.
Okay. Like, say, getting negative feedback on a project.
Right, that's the event. Then it passes through your personal interpretation. How do you make sense of that feedback? Maybe your interpretation is, see, this proves I'm just not cut out for this kind of work.
Ah, okay. The meaning you attach.
Exactly, and that interpretation immediately triggers an emotional validation. In this case, maybe feelings of shame or dread or inadequacy.
Event, interpretation, emotion.
And here's the kicker. Every single time you run through that sequence in your mind, recalling the feedback, refeeling the shame, reinforcing the interpretation, you are physically strengthening that neural highway. You're deepening the connection between that event and your assumed reality. You're paving that road.
Making the autopilot even stronger.
Exactly. And once that belief is firmly established, it acts like a colored lens.
Yeah.
It literally filters every single moment of your experience. The sources use this great analogy of two people standing right at the edge of a high cliff.
Same physical spot.
Identical physical setting. But person A feels this rush of exhilaration, total freedom, breathing it all in, seeing the endless horizon. Person B is rooted to the spot, trembling, paralyzed by vertigo.
Wow. Same cliff, completely different realities.
It's generated internally. Their established belief systems, their lenses create two utterly different, subjectively real, and internally valid experiences. The cliff itself is neutral. The belief system defines the experience of it.
And I think most of us mistake our lens for objective reality, don't we? That must be the absolute hardest part of changing beliefs, realizing the problem isn't the cliff, it's my view of the cliff.
It absolutely is. And this plays out in very real ways. Take the case study of Samuel, the entrepreneur. Our sources detail this quite well.
Right.
He had a genuinely brilliant product, even got some initial seed funding.
Sounds promising.
Very. But then he just stalled for months. Couldn't seem to pull the trigger on the full launch. He kept endlessly tweaking the marketing copy, redesigning the website again and again, avoiding crucial investor follow-up meetings. He was clearly competent, smart, but paralyzed.
What was going on under the surface? What was the real block?
It traced back to a childhood label. Someone, probably repeatedly, had called him scatterbrained. And over years, that label mutated into this deeply ingrained limiting belief. I don't think serious people like investors take me seriously. Deep down, I'm fundamentally disorganized.
Even though his product and his pitch were actually good.
Objectively excellent, according to the case study. But his internal lens told him he wasn't credible. So subconsciously, he procrastinated, found reasons for delay, essentially sabotaged every real opportunity to move forward. The breakthrough didn't come from changing the product or the pitch deck.
It came from changing the belief.
Yes. The only thing that shifted was his internal self-perception. He had to dismantle that scatterbrained belief. And once he did, it was like a dam breaking. Suddenly he had the courage, the clarity, to take the external actions that had seemed impossible before.
That just highlights how crucial it is to identify the actual source code, the specific limiting belief running the show. Our sources call these the unseen architects. I like that term.
Me too, because they're literally drawing the blueprints for a life that's much smaller, much more confined than what you're actually capable of living. And they often hide behind these 5 common masks. We really should spend a moment unpacking these, because recognizing them in yourself is key.
Okay, let's do it. Mask number 1.
The first mask is fear. And we're not just talking about normal nervousness here. This is a deep-seated insistence that failure isn't just disappointing, it's humiliating. It's permanent proof of inadequacy.
So it shows up as perfectionism, like I absolutely must get everything right the very first time.
Exactly. Or else I'm fundamentally flawed. So, the person avoids taking action, not because they can't do it, but to avoid the unbearable label of having failed.
Okay, that's fear. What's the second mask?
Second is unworthiness. This mask whispers that you somehow lack the intrinsic credentials, the permission slip, to experience happiness, success, or even just basic comfort.
The internal dialogue might be something like, who am I to lead this team? Or I haven't really earned this promotion, this relationship.
Precisely. It often manifests as downplaying your successes, attributing them to luck, or even finding ways to subtly sabotage things when they start going too well. Because deep down, the belief says, I don't deserve this.
Right. Mask 3.
Mask 3 is scarcity.
Hmm.
This lens colors the entire world as a limited pie. If you operate from scarcity, every opportunity someone else gets a friend's success, a competitor's win, feels somehow like your loss.
Because there's only so much good stuff to go around.
In that worldview, yes. It breeds constant comparison, jealousy, maybe even resentment, because success is seen as a zero-sum game. If they win, I must lose.
Okay. Fear, unworthiness, scarcity. What's the fourth mask? Is it related to scarcity?
It's distinct. The fourth is rigidity. Scarcity looks outward at limited resources. Rigidity looks inward and backward. It insists that your past rigidly predicts your future.
Ah, that's just the way I am, Trap.
Exactly. Or, my family has never been good with money, so obviously I won't be either. Or, I've always been shy, I can't change now. It confuses personal history with unchangeable destiny. It denies the possibility of growth or change based purely on past patterns.
Got it. And the fifth mask?
The fifth is vicarious identity. This is a subtle but powerful one. It's when you adopt other people's expectations or definitions of success as your own, overriding your genuine desires.
So you might end up pursuing a career, say, in law or medicine, because your family or society deemed it respectable and successful.
Even if your heart truly lies in teaching or art or carpentry, you're living out a blueprint someone else drew for you, often without even realizing you've suppressed your own. Spotting which of these five masks, fear, unworthiness, scarcity, rigidity, vicarious identity is operating, is that crucial first step to taking back the pencil and redrawing the blueprint.
And all these beliefs, wearing these masks, they sort of consolidate into your self-image, right? The sources describe this as the foreman on your internal construction site.
It's a great analogy from the material. The self-image acts as the foreman. And here's the critical part. The foreman's primary job isn't necessarily to build the biggest, best building possible.
What is its job then?
Its primary job is to protect the integrity of the existing blueprint, to keep things consistent with what it already believes to be true about you.
Wait, so the foreman might actually resist growth if that growth contradicts the current self-image, even positive growth.
Precisely. If your self-image includes the belief, I am shy, the foreman sees things like networking events, public speaking opportunities, even spontaneous social invitations as threats. They're not in our design specification.
So the foreman actively tries to prevent you from doing those things. How?
It throws up roadblocks. Maybe sudden, inexplicable fatigue right before the event. Maybe you forget to put it on your calendar. Maybe intense anxiety floods you as you walk towards the door. These aren't random. They're the foreman's tools to keep you safely within the bounds of the shy person blueprint. You end up avoiding the event. Or maybe you go, but hang back, don't talk to anyone.
Which then reinforces the original belief. See, I told you I was shy. Networking doesn't work for me.
Exactly. It becomes this vicious, self-fulfilling cycle. The foreman successfully protected the blueprint, but kept you small.
Wow. That makes so much sense. We think we're fighting external circumstances, but often we're actually fighting our own internal foreman who's just trying to keep things stable and predictable based on an old, outdated plan. The sources mentioned Maya, didn't they? Her story illustrates this.
Yes, Maya's story is a perfect example. She was a really talented manager, clearly capable, but she held this deep belief that she was just average, nothing special.
So her foreman had the average blueprint.
Exactly. And that foreman actively prevented her from even applying for a significant leadership role that opened up. It wasn't that she feared the actual workload or the responsibilities.
What was the fear then?
Her specific fear, tied to that average belief, was that she would crumble under pressure. This was a hand-me-down thought, something she'd absorbed from childhood criticism, maybe seeing a parent struggle. It became part of her identity blueprint. People like me don't handle pressure well.
So her transformation wasn't about learning new management skills. She probably already had those.
She did. Her transformation was entirely internal. It was about excavating and challenging those inherited hand-me-down thoughts about crumbling. Once she updated that part of the blueprint, the foreman could stop blocking the leadership path. The foreman could start overseeing the construction of a leader identity instead of just maintaining the average manager one.
Yeah.
The external reality, the job opening, her skills hadn't changed. What changed was her internal capacity to act on that reality.
That idea of internal capacity, it's the perfect bridge, really, into this next section, because we need to ground this firmly in science. We need to show that this isn't just, psychology talk. Belief is physiology, it's biology. And the absolute core truth here is neuroplasticity.
Yes. Neuroplasticity is essentially the brain's built-in editing software to its capacity to change and adapt.
For a long time, the thinking was that the adult brain was pretty much fixed, right? Like hardened clay.
That was the dominant view for centuries, yes. But we now know unequivocally that the brain remains functionally malleable, adaptable, plastic throughout our entire lifespan. Every single challenge we face, every new skill we learn, and critically for this discussion, every shift in our core beliefs literally rewires and reshapes our neural circuitry.
And we're not just talking theory here. There's observable physical proof of this. The classic example everyone points to is the London taxi driver analogy.
It's the gold standard illustration, absolutely. To become a licensed London black cab driver, you have to pass this incredibly difficult test called the knowledge. It involves memorizing thousands upon thousands of streets, landmarks, routes within a huge radius of central London.
An immense cognitive feat.
Immense. But here's the fascinating part. Brain imaging studies show that undergoing this intensive training process leads to a measurable, significant enlargement of the posterior hippocampus in these drivers' brains.
The hippocampus being the brain's map room, essentially.
Exactly. Learning the map physically grew that part of their brain. Their focused belief that they needed to master that map, coupled with the intense practice, literally built new neural real estate inside their heads.
So next time someone says, oh, you can't teach an old dog new tricks, we can just point to the hippocampus of a London cabbie.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
It's concrete, measurable evidence against that old saying. And this malleability, this plasticity, it extends even to quite extreme cases of retraining and recovery. Think about the violinist, Maria, mentioned in the sources.
Right. She had a serious injury.
A severe injury to her dominant left hand, the fingering hand for a violinist. Doctors basically told her that her professional performance career was likely over. The damage was too significant.
Devastating for a musician.
Absolutely. But Maria held on to the belief, the conviction, that she could adapt. She refused to accept the verdict. She dedicated herself with incredible discipline to retraining her opposite hand, her right hand, to do the intricate fingering work, while her left hand learned the bowing. She was essentially trying to rewire millions of neural connections built up over years and years of practice.
That sounds almost impossible. What happened?
Within 18 months of intense, focused practice, driven by that core belief, she performed a public recital, playing with the reversed hand rolls. Her belief provided the essential motivation, the drive, but it was neuroplasticity that provided the biological means for that astonishing adaptation.
That's incredible. So the takeaway here for anyone listening is huge. Change isn't just a hope. It's not just for the lucky few. It's a biological fact guaranteed by the very nature of your nervous system.
That's the empowering message, yes. And this change isn't just structural over time. It's happening chemically, moment to moment. Our thoughts orchestrate this immediate hormonal symphony.
Explain that. How does a thought trigger hormones?
It's a direct feedback loop. When you interpret an event through a pessimistic or fearful lens, say, a minor mistake feels like a catastrophe, your brain signals the release of cortisol and adrenaline. These are the stress hormones, the fight or flight chemicals. Your body goes on high alert.
Okay, so negative interpretation equals stress chemistry.
Right. Conversely, when you approach a situation with a lens of optimistic focus, agency, belief in your ability to handle it, your brain facilitates the release of different neurochemicals, dopamine, serotonin, maybe oxytocin. These are associated with focus, motivation, reward, well-being, social connection.
So your interpretation directly changes your body's chemical state in real time.
Instantly. And we can even influence this consciously through our physical posture, can't we? I'm thinking of Amy Cuddy's research on power posing.
Yes, the power posing work is fascinating in this context. Her research demonstrated that adopting open, expansive, confident postures, literally embodying the belief, I am confident, I have agency, even for just a couple of minutes, could measurably change physiology.
How so? What changed? Participants showed an increase in testosterone levels, which is linked to assertiveness and willingness to take risks, and a decrease in cortisol levels, the stress hormone.
So just changing your posture, acting as if you're confident, actually nudges your biology in that direction.
It seems so. Your physical stance acts as a feedback cue to your brain and endocrine system. It demonstrates that the line from belief, even consciously adopted belief, to biology is continuous, bidirectional, and remarkably fast.
Okay, let's shift focus slightly to the brain's internal filter mechanism, which is absolutely critical for understanding why our existing beliefs tend to perpetuate themselves. This is the reticular activating system, the RAS.
The RAS. It's located in the brainstem, and you can think of it as the brain's quality control manager, or its selective attention filter. Some call it the bouncer at the club of consciousness.
Why the bouncer?
Because we are absolutely bombarded with millions, maybe billions, of bits of sensory information every single second, sights, sounds, smells, internal sensations. We can't possibly pay conscious attention to all of it. The RAS's job is to filter through that flood and decide what's important enough, what's relevant enough to be allowed into your conscious awareness.
And how does it decide what's relevant? This is the key part, right?
This is the key. It decides based on what's necessary for survival, what's novel, and crucially, what aligns with your existing beliefs and your current goals and concerns.
Ah, so your beliefs act like the instruction manual for the RAS.
Exactly. They provide the criteria list for the bouncer. If you hold a deep-seated belief that the world is a dangerous place or opportunities are scarce, your RAS is primed to notice, tag, and highlight every piece of information that confirms that belief. Negative news, examples of failure, signs of scarcity, they get VIP access to your consciousness.
Creating a kind of negative reality tunnel. You literally see more evidence for your negative beliefs because your brain is specifically looking for it.
Precisely. It's that classic phenomenon. You decide you want to buy a red car, and suddenly you see red cars everywhere. They were always there, obviously, but your RAS wasn't tagging them as relevant before. Now, red car is on its instruction list.
So if you believe in opportunity, if you believe people are generally helpful, your RAS starts highlighting evidence for that.
Yes. It will selectively bring resources, potential solutions, helpful encounters, positive news to your conscious attention. It physically changes what you perceive about the world around you. And think about the energy drain. If your RAS is constantly flagging perceived threats based on a negative belief system, you're living in a state of chronic vigilance dictated by your own filter.
Wow. Okay. The RAS explained how beliefs maintain themselves by filtering perception. Now, what about the past? Are we just stuck with the emotional impact of past failures or traumas? The sources talk about memory reconsolidation, which sounds hopeful.
It's incredibly hopeful, and it's based on really solid neuroscience now. The finding is this. When you actively recall a memory, especially an emotionally charged one, that memory trace in the brain doesn't just get viewed like a file on a computer. For a short period, it enters a labile state. It becomes temporarily unstable, malleable.
Like warm wax, as one source put it.
Exactly like warm wax.
Yeah.
Before it restabilizes, reconsolidates back into long-term storage, there's a window of opportunity.
An opportunity to do what? Change the memory.
Not to change the historical facts of the event, no. You can't change what happened. But you can change the emotional tag, the meaning, the belief that got attached to that memory.
Okay, give me an example.
Let's say you revisit a memory of a past business failure. The old belief attached might be, that failure proved I'm incompetent and shouldn't take risks. During this reconsolidation window, when the memory is warm, you can consciously work to attach a new meaning, a new belief.
Such as?
That experience, while painful, taught me invaluable lessons about market research and resilience. It trained me for future success. You recall the same event, but you actively pair it with this new, empowering interpretation. When the memory resolidifies, it does so with the updated emotional tag.
So you diffuse its negative power over your present.
You diffuse its power. You rewrite its influence. The past becomes not a fixed block of concrete, but a living document that you can edit the interpretation of. It's profoundly liberating.
Liberating is the right word. And perhaps the most profound link between mindset and biology, the real cutting edge, is epigenetics. This connects our mental state right down to our genes.
Epigenetics is fascinating. It's the study of changes in organisms caused by modification of gene expression rather than alteration of the genetic code itself. Think of your DNA as the hardware, the blueprint. Epigenetics is like the software that tells the hardware which parts of the blueprint to read and activate.
So it's about which genes get switched on or off?
Precisely.
Yeah.
And what's emerging is that environmental factors and lifestyle factors, including our chronic stress levels, our social interactions, and yes, even our habitual thought patterns and beliefs, can influence these epigenetic switches.
So my mindset can literally talk to my genes. How does that work? Give me an example.
Okay, well, chronic stress is a well-studied example. When you're constantly interpreting the world through a lens of threat and pessimism, your body is flooded with cortisol. Research shows a correlation between sustained high cortisol levels and epigenetic changes that upregulate genes responsible for inflammation.
Which makes sense, as chronic inflammation is linked to so many diseases.
Exactly. On the flip side, practices associated with a positive mindset, like mindfulness, meditation, cultivating gratitude, have been correlated with epigenetic changes that downregulate those inflammatory genes and even enhance the expression of genes related to antiviral defenses.
So, by managing my mindset, cultivating positive beliefs, I'm not just feeling better psychologically, I might actually be influencing which of my genes are active. I'm kind of co-authoring my biological script.
That's precisely what the science is suggesting. You're actively participating in the expression of your own biology through the beliefs you hold and the mental states you cultivate. It has a whole new layer of responsibility and potential, doesn't it?
Okay, the science is compelling. Neuroplasticity guarantees we can change. Epigenetics suggests our thoughts even influence our genes. But the big question remains, how? How do we actually bridge that gap from knowing change is possible to making it happen? We need the practical toolkit.
Absolutely. This is where the rubber meets the road. We need concrete methods for first identifying and then actively rewriting those limiting beliefs, those unseen architects.
So step one, identifying them. How do we spot these things when they're often so deeply ingrained they just feel like, well, like reality? We need early warning signs.
Right. The sources give several clues. One big one is listening for the word can't when it's delivered as a statement of fact about yourself, but without any real objective evidence. I can't negotiate a raise. I can't learn a new language at my age. I can't run a marathon. Is it truly impossible, or is it an underlying belief masquerading as a fact?
So challenging the can't, what else?
Look for emotional disproportion. A small piece of constructive criticism sends you into a spiral of shame for days. An unexpected change in plans triggers overwhelming anxiety. That intense, out-of-proportion emotional reaction often signals that the current event has hooked into a much older, deeper limiting belief, maybe about worthiness or safety or control.
And there are physical cues too, right? The body often knows before the conscious mind does.
Yes, the physical cues can be incredibly telling. Maybe your shoulders tense up and creep towards your ears the moment someone praises you. Or you feel a knot in your stomach when you think about asking for something you want. Or you literally can't make eye contact when discussing your accomplishments.
Why would praise cause tension?
It could signal an old belief that visibility is dangerous, that standing out leads to criticism or attack. So even though the praise is positive, the body reacts protectively based on the old programming. Don't be seen. These physical reactions are valuable data about the underlying beliefs.
Okay, so we're looking for unsupported can'ts, disproportionate emotions, and physical tells. But sometimes these beliefs are slippery. The sources recommend a specific exercise to bring them out of hiding. The mirror exercise.
Ah, yes, the mirror exercise. It sounds simple, maybe even a bit awkward, but it's incredibly powerful because it bypasses a lot of our usual intellectual defenses.
How does it work?
You stand in front of a mirror, make eye contact with yourself, really look into your own eyes, and then you state out loud a significant desire or commitment that feels challenging. Something like, I'm going to start my own business, or I deserve a loving and supportive relationship, or I will double my income this year.
And then you just listen.
You listen very carefully to the immediate internal echo. What's the first thought or feeling that surfaces? Is it a scoff? A wave of fear? A voice saying, "Who are you kidding?" Or, "That's impossible." The mirror amplifies that internal resistance, making it harder to ignore or rationalize away.
You mentioned Daniel's story earlier, didn't you?
Yeah.
The mirror helped him uncover something specific.
Yes. When he finally did the exercise and stated his ambition to double his income, the immediate echo wasn't skepticism or fear, surprisingly. It was a profound wave of sadness.
Sadness? Why?
Holding that eye contact, that vulnerability, allowed him to access a deeper belief. The sadness stemmed from a feeling of betraying his family, who had always struggled financially. The underlying belief was something like, it's not okay for me to surpass them. I don't deserve more than they had. That was the real block, rooted in loyalty and guilt, and the mirror helped bring it into conscious awareness.
Wow. Okay, another tool mentioned is the writing ritual, using writing as a different kind of mirror.
Exactly. Free writing exercises can be fantastic for uncovering hidden conflicts. You take prompts like money is, relationships are, my body is, success means, people in authority are. And you just write continuously without censoring whatever comes to mind.
And patterns emerge.
Patterns and contradictions often surface. For example, you might write about desperately wanting financial freedom, but then under the money is, Prompt, you write things like, the root of all evil, stressful, something rich people have, but they're not happy.
Ah, so you uncover the conflict. Part of you wants wealth, but another part believes wealth leads to isolation or moral compromise.
Precisely. And your brain, trying to keep you safe and congruent, will likely prioritize avoiding the perceived negative consequences, isolation, stress, over achieving the desired goal, wealth. The writing makes that internal conflict visible on the page.
Okay, so we've used these tools. We've spotted a likely limiting belief. Say, I'm terrible with money. Now what? Just knowing it isn't enough, is it? We need to actively challenge it.
Definitely not enough. Now comes the crucial step of challenging the narrative using rigorous inquiry. Think of inquiry as the scalpel that carefully separates the factual event from the layer of interpretation, the belief that we've plastered onto it.
How do we do that? What questions do we ask?
When that belief surfaces, I'm terrible with money, you challenge it directly. Ask questions like,
Yeah.
1. Is this belief 100% true without exception, always? The answer is almost always no. 2. What concrete evidence contradicts this belief? Can I think of any times I handled money well, even small amounts, saved for something, paid bills on time? 3. Where did this belief originally come from? Did someone tell me this? Did I conclude it after one specific mistake? Is it really mine? 4. What are the costs of holding on to this belief? What opportunities does it deny me? How does it make me feel? 5. And the really powerful one, who would I be, how would I act without this belief?
That last question, who would I be without this belief? That seems key. It forces you to imagine a different possibility.
It does. It creates this space, this identity vacuum. If I'm not terrible with money, then who am I? Maybe I'm someone who's learning about money. Maybe I'm someone who just needs better strategies. It shifts the focus from a fixed negative identity, I am bad, to a state of potential and action. I can learn. The shame dissolves, making room for constructive steps.
This reminds me of your own story you shared earlier about the carpentry mistake with your grandfather. That inquiry process must have been what helped you dismantle that I am not precise belief.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
For years, that narrative, you're not precise, felt like a fundamental truth about me, based on that one event, miscutting a piece of wood when I was 12.
So the inquiry was asking, is it always true? I'm not precise.
Yes. And of course, the answer was no. I could point to many instances in my adult life, my career, where I'd been precise, detail-oriented, meticulous. Then asking, where did it come from? It came from a single, gentle comment from my grandfather, likely intended just as a teaching moment for a distracted kid. It wasn't some grand pronouncement on my lifelong capabilities.
And who would you be without that belief?
Without that belief, I wouldn't automatically avoid tasks requiring detail. I could approach spreadsheets, planning, editing, whatever it was, with neutrality, maybe even curiosity, instead of preemptive fear and avoidance. The inquiry process reframed the entire narrative from, I am fundamentally imprecise, to, I learned a valuable lesson about measurement and patience from my grandfather, and I am capable of detailed work when I focus.
That reframing is the next crucial step in the toolkit, isn't it? Rewriting and reframing the belief itself.
Exactly. Once you've challenged the old belief and seen its flaws, you need to consciously install a new, more empowering one. This involves replacing those rigid absolutes, I always mess up, I'm terrible at this, with more flexible, progressive, growth-oriented language.
The sources strongly recommend that simple but powerful not yet strategy.
It's brilliant in its simplicity. Instead of, I can't manage my finances, you reframe it as, I have not yet mastered effective money management strategies. Instead of, I'm not a leader, it's, I am developing my leadership skills. I'm not yet fully comfortable in that role, but I'm learning.
What does that not yet achieve?
It does two crucial things. One, it preserves your dignity and self-worth. You're not labeling yourself as fundamentally flawed. Two, it inherently implies a process of growth and acknowledges a future possibility. It turns a dead end into a journey.
Okay, so we challenge, we reframe with better language, and then we need to practice thinking this new way. This involves training the inner coach, right? Managing that internal self-talk.
Yes, you have to actively intervene when that old critical inner voice starts playing its greatest hits. Most of us have a pretty harsh inner critic. The goal is to train that voice to become more of a supportive, instructional inner coach.
How do we do that, especially when the criticism feels so automatic?
We can use specific self-talk techniques. The research by Ethan Kross at the University of Michigan is really relevant here. He found that using your own name, or the second person, you, when talking to yourself during challenges can be surprisingly effective.
Instead of, I'm messing this up, you'd say, okay, your name, take a breath. You can figure this out. Why does that help?
Cross suggests it creates psychological distance. Talking to yourself as you would talk to a friend engages different neural circuits, moving you slightly out of the immediate emotional overwhelm, often associated with I statements in distress, and into a more objective problem-solving perspective. It's like getting advice from a separate, wiser part of yourself.
So using your name, using you. What else?
Focus on instructional self-talk. Okay, first step is to open the file. And motivational self-talk, you've handled tougher things than this, keep going. And critically, catch the old narrative midstream. When that presentation slide freezes and the immediate thought is, oh, I'm so stupid, you consciously interrupt. Hold on, I am not stupid. The software hiccuped. That happens. Okay, what's the fix? I'll restart it quickly and maybe ask the audience a question to keep them engaged while it reboots.
You're literally coaching yourself through the moment, replacing the criticism with problem solving.
Exactly. It takes practice, conscious effort at first, but with repetition, you are literally retraining that inner voice, building the neural pathway for the inner coach to become the new autopilot.
All right, we've got the toolkit for identifying, challenging, and rewriting the script internally. Now, how do we make this new belief, this new blueprint stick? How do we move it from just an idea in our heads into our actual lived reality? This is about embodiment and action.
Precisely. The new belief needs to be lived, felt, and acted upon consistently. And the first major tool for this, according to our sources, is visualization.
Now, some people hear visualization and think it's a bit, well, woo-woo, just wishful thinking.
And that's a misconception. When we talk about visualization here, we're talking about structured mental rehearsal based on neuroscience. It's not just passive daydreaming. It's actively running a detailed feature film in your mind of the desired outcome and the process to get there.
How does that actually work in the brain?
When you vividly imagine performing an action or achieving a goal, the neural networks involved in actually doing that thing fire up. Your brain doesn't always clearly distinguish between an intensely imagined experience and a real one, especially at the emotional and physiological level. You're essentially pre-paving the neural pathways for success.
And there's actual research supporting this. It's not just theory.
Oh, absolutely. The classic study often cited is Alan Richardson's basketball study from the 1960s. It's quite remarkable.
Remind us how that went.
Richardson took 3 groups of students who had never practiced basketball free throws before. Group A physically practiced shooting free throws every day for 20 days. Group B did absolutely no practice at all. Group C didn't touch a basketball. They spent 20 minutes each day only mentally rehearsing, vividly, visualizing themselves making perfect free throws.
Okay, so physical practice versus mental practice versus no practice. What were the results?
Group A, the physical practice group, improved their free throw accuracy by 24%. Group B, no surprise, showed no improvement. Group C, the mental visualization group, they improved by 23%.
Wow. Almost identical improvement to the physical practice group just through visualization.
Nearly identical. It demonstrates the power of focused mental rehearsal to prime the brain and body for performance. It's not magic. It's targeted neural training.
So for the listener, this means mental rehearsal isn't just a nice add-on, it's a legitimate form of practice. But how do we make that visualization effective? Is just thinking about winning enough?
Not quite. The key is sensory detail. You need to make the mental movie as rich and real as possible. Don't just see yourself getting the promotion. Feel the handshake, hear the congratulations, smell the coffee in the new office. Notice the feeling of confidence in your posture. Engage all 5 senses.
Why is the sensory richness so important?
Because it increases the emotional intensity of the visualization. And emotion is like the brain's save button. Highly emotional experiences, whether real or vividly imagined, get stamped into memory much more deeply, forging stronger neural connections. It makes the desired future feel more familiar and achievable.
The sources also make a really important distinction. Visualize the process over outcome. Don't just focus on the finish line. Why is rehearsing the struggle, the effort, so critical?
Because real life involves obstacles.
Yeah.
If you only ever visualize effortless victory, the first time you hit a real challenge and your brain flags it as error, this wasn't in the script, that can trigger panic, doubt, and make you want to quit.
So you need to visualize yourself overcoming the difficulty.
Exactly. If you're training for a marathon, don't just picture crossing the finish line smiling. Picture yourself at mile 20 when your legs are burning, your breath is ragged, and you see yourself consciously adjusting your pace, focusing your breathing, using your positive self-talk, and pushing through that wall.
You're rehearsing resilience.
You're rehearsing resilience. You're priming your nervous system to recognize the challenge not as a stop sign, but as a familiar part of the process that you know how to navigate. It builds confidence in your ability to handle the journey, not just fantasize about the destination.
Okay, visualization sets the internal stage, but then we need to translate that into consistent action. This brings us to harnessing daily habits. The sources frame habits as the bridge from imagination to embodiment.
They absolutely are.
Yeah.
Habits are belief made visible. They are how the new blueprint gets physically built in the real world. And neurologically, habits are crucial because they shift behaviors from the effortful, easily fatigued prefrontal cortex, the seat of willpower, to the automatic, energy-efficient basal ganglia.
They put the desired actions onto autopilot.
Exactly. Which frees up your precious mental bandwidth and willpower for dealing with novel challenges, rather than constantly deciding whether or not to do the basics.
And the key shift here is focusing on identity-based action, right? It's less about the specific goal and more about becoming the type of person who achieves that goal.
That's a core concept from James Clear's work, which aligns perfectly here. Instead of focusing on, I need to lose 20 pounds, you focus on, I'm a healthy person. Then you ask, what does a healthy person do? They make healthy choices consistently. Each healthy meal, each workout, isn't just about the outcome. It's a vote for that identity.
So if I want to be a writer, the identity is, I am a writer. The vote is.
The vote is writing something, maybe just one sentence, maybe for 5 minutes every single day. The focus isn't on writing a bestseller tomorrow. It's on casting the daily vote that reinforces the identity. Writers write. The accumulation of those votes fundamentally changes who you believe you are.
But starting can be so hard. That initial resistance, the inertia, how do we overcome that? The 5-minute rule seems helpful here.
The 5-minute rule is brilliant for disarming the brain's natural resistance to large, intimidating tasks. If the goal is meditate for 30 minutes, your brain might scream, no way, too long, too hard, and you procrastinate.
But if you reduce it,
If you reduce the requirement to just 5 minutes, I will sit on the cushion for 5 minutes. It feels much less threatening. The barrier to entry is tiny. Often, once you've started, you might continue longer, but even if you only do the 5 minutes, you've cast your vote for the identity. I am someone who meditates.
consistency beats intensity.
Every single time for building habits. Remember Carlos from the source material, learning Italian? He committed to just 5 minutes a night with a language app. That tiny consistent action was enough to shift his identity to, I am someone who speaks Italian, which then fueled more learning. 5 minutes, done consistently, is infinitely better than planning for an hour and doing nothing.
And to make sure those 5 minutes or whatever the small action is actually happen, we use implementation intentions.
Yes, this technique links your desired habit to an existing cue in your routine, using an if-then structure. It takes the decision-making out of the moment.
So instead of vaguely saying, I'll exercise more, you'd say,
if it's 7 a.m. and my alarm rings, then I will immediately put on my workout clothes. Or if I finish my lunch, then I will immediately go for a 10-minute walk. It preloads the decision, making the action much more likely to happen automatically.
okay, visualization, identity-based habits, the 5-minute rule, implementation intentions. When all these start working together, when your actions start aligning with your new beliefs, what does that generate?
It generates genuine congruence and confidence. Confidence isn't something you magically acquire or wait for. According to these sources, it's the natural byproduct, the outcome of accumulated congruent moments.
Moments where your beliefs, your words, and your actions all line up.
Exactly. When you say you value health, belief, talk about eating well, words, and then actually choose the salad action, that's a moment of congruence. Each moment builds trust in yourself. This creates a quiet, solid poise that's far more resilient than loud, temporary bravado based on fleeting emotion.
And we can even use our bodies to reinforce this, using somatic anchors, acting as if.
Yes, using the body to teach the mind. We talked about power posing earlier. Similarly, before a stressful meeting or presentation, you can consciously adopt physical anchors associated with the state you want to embody. Maybe planting your feet firmly on the ground, lengthening your spine, relaxing your shoulders, breathing deeply. This physical posture sends feedback to your brain, helping to trigger the desired state of, say, calm authority or grounded confidence.
So for anyone listening who struggles with that nagging imposter syndrome, that feeling of being a fraud despite their accomplishments, the solution isn't just trying to think your way out of it.
Thinking alone often isn't enough because the feeling is so visceral. The most powerful antidote to imposter syndrome is action. You don't wait until you feel confident to act. You act despite the feeling of doubt. Each time you take the action, make the presentation, lead the meeting, ship the project, you gather real-world data.
Data that contradicts the imposter feeling.
Exactly. That doubting inner voice thrives on speculation and fear. It cannot survive a consistent onslaught of contradictory evidence from your actual actions and accomplishments. Action proves the doubt wrong, builds congruence, and generates authentic confidence over time.
Okay, we've built the internal foundation and the action plan. But we don't exist in a vacuum, do we? This internal transformation has to survive contact with the external world. We need to talk about sustaining this work, especially considering context and resilience.
Absolutely critical, because your environment, the people you spend time with, the places you inhabit, the information you consume, acts like this giant, often subconscious, social mirror. It constantly reflects back messages that either support or undermine your internal blueprint.
So if I'm working hard to build a belief in abundance, but I spend all my time with people who constantly complain about scarcity and lack, that's going to be an uphill battle.
A very steep uphill battle. You're essentially standing in front of a mirror that's broadcasting fear and limitation all day long. Eventually, consciously or unconsciously, you start to internalize that reflection. This ties into emotional contagion.
We literally catch emotions from each other.
We do. Emotions are contagious, much like yawns. The dominant emotional tone of your social network, whether it's generally optimistic, supportive, and encouraging, triggering oxytocin, dopamine, or cynical, critical, and fear-based, triggering cortisol, significantly calibrates your own default neurochemical climate.
So maintaining an optimistic, growth-oriented belief system is almost impossible if you're immersed in a group dedicated to complaining and finding fault.
It's incredibly difficult, yes. The constant negativity provides counter-evidence to your desired belief, and the emotional contagion keeps your own system tilted towards stress and defense rather than growth and possibility.
Which means a crucial part of sustaining belief change is actively designing belief-friendly spaces. We need to curate our environment.
Intentional curation is key. What does this look like practically? It might mean consciously choosing who you spend most of your time with. It might mean unfollowing negative or fear-mongering accounts on social media.
What about physical spaces?
That matters too. Maybe you replace the stressful cable news playing in the background with uplifting music or silence. Maybe you put images that represent your goals or feelings of resilience on your computer screensaver instead of random defaults. Decluttering your workspace can reflect and reinforce an identity of being organized and in control. These seem like small things.
But they're constantly sending subtle cues to your brain, guiding the attention of your RAS, reinforcing the new reality you're trying to build.
Precisely. You're shaping your environment to mirror the beliefs you want to strengthen.
But what about those situations we can't easily change, like maybe unsupportive family members or a necessary but negative work environment? You can't always just walk away.
That's where managing dosage comes in. You can't always change the environment, but you can often control your exposure to it. With necessary but unsupportive relationships, you become strategic about the frequency, duration, and depth of your interactions.
Limit the time. Keep conversations superficial.
Sometimes, yes. It's about protecting your internal state. Remember the example of the corporate engineer with writing aspirations. His colleagues were skeptical, maybe even mocking. He couldn't just quit his job.
So what did he do?
He managed the dosage of negativity at work, keeping interactions brief and focused when needed. But crucially, he also created positive microenvironments. He had a supportive writing friend, and they'd exchange quick, encouraging, instant messages several times throughout the workday. Those 5-minute bursts of positive connection helped nourish his belief system and counteract the skepticism he faced elsewhere. It's about consciously injecting positivity and limiting the negative input where you can.
Okay, managing the environment is key. But even with the best preparation, setbacks will happen. You'll fall back into an old pattern, face criticism, experience failure. How do we prevent that setback from completely derailing the new belief system and reactivating the old negative blueprint?
The absolute first step is to redefine the event. A setback is not a verdict, it is a question. It's not proof that the new belief is wrong or that you're incapable. It's simply feedback. It's the system asking, is this belief strong enough? Does the strategy need tweaking? Where is reinforcement needed?
But in the moment, it feels like a verdict. The brain reacts instantly with panic, right?
It does. The amygdala, the brain's threat detector, fires up immediately, often flooding the system with cortisol and adrenaline. This can effectively shut down the prefrontal cortex, the rational planning part of the brain.
Yeah.
So the initial reaction is often emotional, maybe wanting to give up entirely.
So how do we regain control? How do we move from panic to productive response? The sources talk about the resilience cycle.
Yes. The resilience cycle provides a framework for navigating setbacks constructively. It typically involves 4 stages. 1. Reaction. Acknowledge the initial shock, disappointment, or frustration. Don't suppress it, but don't let it take over. 2. Reflection. This is crucial and often skipped. Take a pause. Name the primary feeling, even, gee, I feel discouraged. Then reconnect with your compass, your core values, your larger identity, the new belief you're building. Ask, what can I learn from this? 3. Recalibration. Based on the reflection, make strategic adjustments. Does the plan need changing? Do I need more support? Was the step too big? What specific action can I take now? 4. Re-engagement. Consciously choose to get back on track, taking the next adjusted step armed with the learning from the setback.
And skipping that reflection stage is where people go wrong. They just react and maybe quit, or react and jump back in without learning.
Exactly. Jumping straight from reaction back to frantic re-engagement without reflection often means repeating the same mistake or reinforcing the feeling of failure. Reflection is where the setback transforms from a painful event into valuable data.
This sounds like Ben's story from the sources, the example of someone struggling with addiction.
Ben's story is a powerful illustration of reframing setbacks. He was working hard to build an identity as someone in recovery. But relapse is common in addiction recovery. If he viewed each relapse through the old lens, see, I'm a failure, I can't do this, it would likely lead to shame and giving up entirely.
But he reframed it.
Through conscious effort and support, he learned to reframe relapse not as a final verdict on his character or his commitment, but as data indicating precisely where my recovery plan and my belief system need strengthening right now. Maybe it showed a trigger he hadn't addressed, or a need for more support meetings, or a flaw in his coping strategies.
So the relapse became information, not condemnation.
Exactly. That reframe allowed him to maintain forward momentum. He could analyze the data, adjust his strategy, recalibrate, and re-engage with his recovery commitment, rather than letting the setback destroy the new identity he was building.
That's a profound shift. And for those really acute moments, when an old negative thought pattern surges back unexpectedly under pressure, is there a quick tool we can use right then and there?
Yes, the sources suggest a simple but effective technique, the 5-breath reset. It combines physical and cognitive re-anchoring.
How does it work?
When you feel that old narrative grabbing hold, I'm not good enough, this always happens to me, you pause. 1. Take a slow, deep breath in, and as you inhale, consciously name the outdated narrative or the feeling that's surfacing. Example, mentally say, that's the scarcity story, or that's the fear of failure. 2, as you take a long, slow breath out, consciously affirm the new chosen belief or simple empowering statement. Example, I learn from challenges, or abundance flows to me. 3, repeat this inhale name, exhale affirm cycle for 5 breaths.
What does that achieve in the moment?
It does several things simultaneously. The deep breathing itself helps calm the nervous system, interrupting the stress response. Naming the old narrative creates distance from it. You observe it instead of being consumed by it. And consciously affirming the new belief reinforces the desired neural pathway. It's a quick, portable way to interrupt the old autopilot and reassert conscious control.
Wow. We've really covered a lot of ground today, from the deep science of neuroplasticity and epigenetics to very practical tools like the mirror exercise and the 5-breath reset. We've spanned the whole spectrum of personal transformation.
We have. And hopefully the key takeaway for everyone listening is that you can absolutely learn to leverage your brain's innate capacity for change. You can learn to consciously curate your environment, align your daily habits with the identity you want to embody, and perhaps most importantly, learn to see setbacks not as dead ends, but as valuable data, as fuel for adaptation.
Because that foundational truth we started with holds firm. The thoughts, the beliefs you rehearse most consistently, truly do become the life you experience. The script you run internally shapes the reality you perceive externally.
And understanding this shifts everything. Your mind isn't just a passive receiver of information. It's this incredibly vast, powerful, creative studio. Once you grasp these principles, you can no longer plead ignorance. You can't keep building monuments to your fears and limitations unwittingly.
You realize you are the architect.
You are the architect. You're the author of your narrative, the director of your internal movie. You have the capacity to choose the blueprint. And that conscious shift, moving from vague wishes like, someday I'll be more confident, or someday I'll start that business, to defining the identity and setting concrete dates and deliverables through habits and actions. That's what transforms abstract possibility into your actual lived reality.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, we want to leave you, our listener, with a final provocative thought. This comes directly from the conclusion of one of our key sources. The possibilities waiting for you in the future aren't just out there waiting to be found. They're waiting to be believed into existence.
And given that your brain is fundamentally wired to prefer what feels familiar, to seek consistency, here's the challenge. What one small, maybe slightly bold action can you take in the next 48 hours? An action that would make your desired future self feel just a tiny bit more familiar, more real than your current self does right now.
Let that question sink in. Let it guide your next choice, your next small habit, maybe even your next word of internal self-talk.
Because that's where the transformation happens. One belief, one action, one moment at a time.
Thank you so much for joining us on the deep dive.
To get more details about You Become What You Believe, transforming your mindset to unlock limitless possibilities, click the below link to get the book. Subscribe us to get more content like this.